The air in the private terminal hummed with a low, almost imperceptible thrum, a symphony of hushed conversations, the gentle whir of air conditioning, and the distant rumble of preparing jets. SEOKJIN, his face partially obscured by the oversized sunglasses that were a near-constant companion, navigated the sleek, modern space with a practiced ease. He was used to this world of private jets and exclusive lounges, a world that existed in stark contrast to the humble beginnings he'd left behind in Busan. But today, a different kind of anxiety gnawed at him, a knot of guilt tightening in his stomach. The scent of polished wood and expensive leather filled the air, a stark contrast to the faint, earthy smell of Snowball's fur that clung subtly to his carry-on bag. He ran a hand over the smooth surface of the bag, feeling the soft, almost imperceptible movement within. Snowball, his tiny white form nestled amongst carefully folded cashmere sweaters and designer jeans, was a secret. A secret that threatened to unravel the carefully constructed facade of his meticulously planned vacation, Bali. The word conjured images of sun-drenched beaches, turquoise waters, and the promise of blissful solitude. He needed this break, a respite from the relentless demands of his career as a member of BTS. The constant travel, the endless interviews, the pressure to maintain a flawless public image, it had all taken its toll. He craved peace, quiet, and the simple pleasure of unwinding without the ever-present scrutiny of the public eye. And Snowball, his newly adopted Samoyed puppy, was to be his silent companion in this much-needed escape that he'd found Snowball at a local animal shelter, a tiny ball of white fluff abandoned and alone. His heart had melted at the sight of the puppy's wide, innocent eyes, and he'd known instantly that he had to take him home. Snowball had become his secret solace, a furry confidant who listened patiently to his anxieties and offered unconditional love in return. The thought of leaving Snowball behind, alone in the cold, sterile environment of the shelter, had been unbearable. So, he'd made a reckless decision, a decision born of love and a desperate need for companionship. He'd smuggled Snowball onto the private jet, a clandestine act that now weighed heavily on his conscience. The boarding announcement crackled over the loudspeaker, its crisp tones cutting through the quiet hum of the terminal. SEOKJIN took a deep breath, the scent of expensive perfume and freshly brewed coffee doing little to calm his racing heart. He hoisted his carry-on bag onto his shoulder, the weight of it feeling heavier than usual. He felt the faint tremor of Snowball's tiny body against the fabric, a silent plea for reassurance. He whispered a soft, comforting word, a silent promise to keep him safe that as he boarded the jet, the plush interior felt strangely oppressive, the luxurious surroundings suddenly suffocating. The quiet hum of the engines, once a soothing lullaby, now felt like a constant reminder of his transgression. He found his seat, the soft leather cool beneath his fingertips. He placed his bag carefully in the overhead compartment, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He knew this was a gamble, a reckless act that could have serious consequences. But the thought of leaving Snowball behind had been too much to bear. The cabin lights dimmed, plunging the interior into a soft, twilight glow. The gentle murmur of conversation faded, replaced by the low thrum of the engines. SEOKJIN adjusted his noise-canceling headphones, the gentle melody doing little to soothe his frayed nerves. He glanced up at the overhead compartment, his eyes lingering on his carry-on bag. He could almost feel Snowball's presence, a silent weight on his conscience that a sharp tap on his shoulder jolted him from his uneasy reverie. He removed his headphones, the sudden silence amplifying the pounding of his heart. A stern-faced flight attendant stood before him, her expression unreadable, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. The air around them seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken tension. The scent of her perfume, a sharp, almost cloying floral, filled his nostrils, adding to his growing unease. "Sir," she began, her voice crisp and formal, "is there anything you'd like to declare?" The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Seokjin's throat tightened, his mouth suddenly dry. He knew this was it. The moment of reckoning had arrived. His carefully constructed secret was about to be exposed that he opened his mouth to speak, but no sound emerged. His mind raced, trying to formulate a plan, a way to escape the inevitable consequences. But there was no escape. He was trapped, caught in the web of his own reckless decision. He felt a wave of nausea wash over him, the plush leather of his seat suddenly feeling cold and clammy beneath him. The flight attendant's gaze was unwavering, her eyes piercing, searching. The silence stretched, an agonizing eternity, punctuated only by the low hum of the engines. He could feel the weight of her scrutiny, the unspoken judgment hanging heavy in the air. He felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple, the cool air of the cabin doing little to alleviate the sudden heat that flushed his face. Finally, he managed a shaky breath, his voice barely a whisper. I have something to confess," he stammered, the words catching in his throat. He felt a tremor run through his body, a mixture of fear and shame. He reached for his carry-on bag, his fingers fumbling with the zipper. He knew he couldn't delay the inevitable any longer. With trembling hands, he unzipped the bag, revealing the small, white face of Snowball. The puppy's big, innocent eyes stared back at him, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. The flight attendant's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in disapproval. The scent of Snowball's fur, faint but distinct, mingled with the sharp floral scent of the flight attendant's perfume, creating a strange, unsettling olfactory dissonance. "Sir," she said, her voice sharper now, "you know this is against regulations. You can't bring animals on board without proper documentation." Her words were a stark reminder of his recklessness, a cold splash of reality that shattered the fragile illusion of his carefully planned escape. He nodded, his gaze fixed on Snowball, his heart sinking with each passing second. He felt a wave of guilt wash over him, a crushing weight of responsibility. He had made a mistake, a selfish one, born of his love for the little dog. He had risked jeopardizing the flight, his reputation, and potentially his entire career, all for the sake of his furry companion, that he braced himself for the inevitable consequences. He expected a stern lecture, a formal reprimand, perhaps even a call to the authorities. He was prepared to face the music, to accept the consequences of his actions. He closed his eyes, bracing himself for the storm that was about to break. But what followed was far from what he expected. The flight attendant's expression softened, a subtle shift that surprised him. Her eyes, previously narrowed in disapproval, now held a flicker of something else. Understanding, perhaps, or even compassion? He opened his eyes, his heart pounding a hesitant rhythm against his ribs. He wasn't sure what to expect next. The situation was far from over. The air, thick with the tension of a moment ago, seemed to thin. The harsh fluorescent lighting of the cabin, previously emphasizing the flight attendant's stern expression, now seemed softer, less judgmental. Seokjin, still clutching his carry-on, felt the tremor in his hands subside slightly. The scent of jet fuel and recycled air was suddenly less oppressive, replaced by a faint, almost imperceptible sweetness. The subtle aroma of vanilla from the small hand lotion Sarah used. A detail Seokjin noticed only now, his senses sharpening with the shift in the atmosphere. Sarah's gaze, previously unwavering and critical, softened. A faint blush colored her cheeks, a contrast to the crisp, professional uniform she wore. She knelt, her movements surprisingly graceful, and her eyes met Snowball's. The puppy, sensing the change in atmosphere, whimpered softly, his small body trembling slightly. Sarah's touch was hesitant at first, a feather-like caress against Snowball's soft, white fur. Then, her touch grew firmer, more confident, a gentle stroking motion that seemed to soothe both the puppy and the tension in the air. "He's adorable," she repeated, her voice a low murmur, almost a sigh. The formality had completely vanished, replaced by a genuine warmth that surprised Seokjin. He could hear the faint whirring of the air conditioning system, a constant background hum that now seemed almost comforting, a counterpoint to the quiet intimacy of the moment. He noticed the faint lines around her eyes, evidence of long hours and perhaps a touch of weariness. Yet, her eyes shone with a genuine affection for Snowball, a reflection of the love he felt for the puppy himself. Sarah explained that she, too, was an animal lover. She spoke of Rusty, her ginger cat, with a fondness that mirrored the deep affection Seokjin felt for Snowball. She described Rusty's playful antics, his soft purr, and the quiet companionship he offered. Her voice, though still professional, held a vulnerability that touched Seokjin. He saw a reflection of his own love for Snowball in her eyes, a shared understanding that transcended the rigid rules and regulations of airline policy. The scent of vanilla from her lotion mingled with the faint, earthy smell of Snowball's fur, creating an unexpected harmony, a symbol of the unlikely connection forming between them. Sarah's proposal wasn't just a solution. It was an invitation to complicity. She suggested a silent pact, a shared secret that would bind them together in a moment of unexpected camaraderie. The idea of keeping Snowball hidden for the remainder of the flight, a clandestine operation within the confines of a pressurized cabin, felt both thrilling and strangely comforting. The weight of his guilt began to lessen, replaced by a sense of shared responsibility, a silent partnership forged in the face of adversity. The hum of the engines became a rhythmic backdrop to their unspoken agreement. Sarah, with a surprising efficiency, procured a small blanket and a bowl of water from the galley. Her movements were swift and silent, a practiced grace that belied the unusual nature of their task. The faint scent of coffee and freshly baked bread, usually a comforting aroma, now held a subtle undercurrent of excitement, a shared secret adding a layer of intrigue to the mundane routine of a long-haul flight. Seokjin, with Sarah's help, carefully nestled Snowball into a small, secluded corner of his seat. The puppy, sensing the change in atmosphere, snuggled into the blanket, his soft whimpers subsiding into a gentle slumber. The soft texture of the blanket, the warmth of Snowball's small body against his own, created a sense of unexpected peace. The initial fear and anxiety were replaced by a quiet contentment, a sense of shared purpose that transcended the initial transgression. The rest of the flight became a quiet dance of complicity. Sarah, in her rounds, would subtly check on Snowball, offering reassuring glances and silent nods to Seokjin. Their interactions were brief, almost imperceptible, yet they spoke volumes. They were united by a shared secret, a bond forged in a moment of unexpected kindness. The rhythmic hum of the engines, the gentle rocking of the plane, the soft breathing of Snowball. These became the soundtrack to their unspoken agreement, a testament to the unexpected connections that can form in the most unlikely of circumstances. The journey, once fraught with anxiety, transformed into a quiet, almost meditative experience, a shared secret weaving a thread of unexpected connection between a world-famous celebrity and a flight attendant, united by their shared love for a small, fluffy puppy. The Balinese sun beat down on Seokjin's shoulders as he stepped off the plane, the humid air a stark contrast to the recycled atmosphere of the jet. Snowball, nestled securely in his carrier, remained surprisingly calm amidst the bustling airport. The initial relief of a successful, albeit clandestine, journey had given way to a quiet contemplation. The scent of frangipani and sea salt filled the air, a heady mix that did little to alleviate the complex emotions swirling within him. He'd escaped detection, but the experience had left an indelible mark. His social media post, a simple expression of gratitude for Sarah's unexpected kindness, had ignited a firestorm. The story, initially shared with a small circle of close friends and fans, had spread like wildfire, transforming from a personal anecdote into a global phenomenon. News outlets, initially focusing on the secret pet aspect, had quickly shifted their narrative, highlighting the unexpected compassion shown by Sarah, a flight attendant who had defied regulations to protect a vulnerable animal and a world-famous celebrity. The positive response was overwhelming. Fans praised Seokjin's honesty and Sarah's kindness, creating a wave of goodwill that transcended the usual celebrity gossip cycle. Animal welfare organizations lauded the story, using it to promote responsible pet ownership and the importance of compassion. But amidst the praise, a darker undercurrent began to emerge. The airline, initially pleased with the positive publicity, found itself facing a backlash. Some questioned their strict no pets policy, arguing that it was inflexible and lacked compassion. Others criticized Sarah's actions, claiming she had violated company regulations and potentially jeopardized the safety of the flight. The initial wave of goodwill began to ebb, replaced by a tide of criticism and controversy. Seokjin, initially basking in the positive attention, found himself caught in the crossfire. His vacation in Bali, once a sanctuary of peace and quiet, became a whirlwind of media inquiries and public scrutiny. The idyllic beaches and tranquil temples were overshadowed by the constant buzz of his phone, the relentless barrage of messages and notifications. The scent of frangipani and sea salt was now tainted by the bitter taste of controversy. He'd intended to share a simple story of kindness, but he'd inadvertently unleashed a maelstrom of conflicting opinions and public debate. The pressure mounted. The airline, facing mounting criticism, launched an internal investigation into Sarah's actions. The media, sensing a juicy story, intensified their coverage, digging deeper into Sarah's background and questioning her motives. Seokjin, caught in the middle, felt a growing sense of responsibility. He'd inadvertently put Sarah's career at risk, a consequence he hadn't foreseen when he'd shared his story that he tried to contact Sarah, but his attempts were unsuccessful. The airline's investigation had placed her under a cloud of suspicion, limiting her access to communication. He felt a growing sense of guilt, a crushing weight of responsibility for the unintended consequences of his actions. The idyllic Balinese landscape, once a source of solace, now felt oppressive, a constant reminder of the complex web of consequences he'd created. The climax arrived unexpectedly. A leaked internal report revealed that Sarah had been facing disciplinary action for unrelated issues prior to the incident with Snowball. The airline, eager to deflect criticism, used the incident as an opportunity to justify her dismissal. The media frenzy intensified, portraying Sarah as a rule breaker, a reckless employee who had jeopardized the safety of the flight. Seokjin felt a surge of anger, a burning injustice at the unfair treatment of a woman who had shown him nothing but kindness that he decided to act. He used his platform, his influence, to fight for Sarah. He publicly defended her actions, highlighting her compassion and professionalism. He shared details of the leaked report, exposing the airline's attempt to scapegoat her. His intervention sparked a new wave of public support, a groundswell of outrage at the airline's unfair treatment of Sarah. The ensuing battle was fierce. The airline, facing a public relations nightmare, attempted to discredit Seokjin, claiming he was interfering in an internal matter. But Seokjin, fueled by his sense of responsibility and his admiration for Sarah's kindness, refused to back down. He used his influence to pressure the airline, demanding a fair and transparent investigation. The story became a symbol of corporate accountability, a battle between compassion and cold, impersonal bureaucracy. The ending was complex, far from the simple resolution he'd initially hoped for. Sarah was reinstated, but the experience had left its mark. The airline implemented changes to its pet policy, acknowledging the need for greater flexibility and compassion. Seokjin's reputation remained intact, but the experience had profoundly changed him. He learned a valuable lesson about the power of his influence, the unintended consequences of his actions, and the importance of fighting for what's right, even when the outcome is uncertain. The scent of frangipani and sea salt, once a symbol of his much-needed escape, now held a deeper meaning, a reminder of the complex web of human relationships, the unexpected consequences of kindness, and the enduring power of compassion in a world often driven by cold, impersonal rules. The story of Snowball, initially a simple tale of unexpected kindness, had transformed into a complex narrative of corporate accountability, public pressure, and the enduring power of human compassion. The ending, far from simple, was a testament to the unpredictable nature of life and the enduring power of human connection.